Hello, everyone. This is me, Gejo, and GP is with me.
Right.
And together, we're going to cover this session, which is how to analyze mocks, the QA section. This is the third of a series that we started. So you can check out our channel. You can see that we started with taking a session on, in general, how to look at mocks. Then we took a session on how to look at the ARC section of the CAT. And here we're going to look at how to analyze the mock test in the QA section. GP, before I start, what are the typical things that you've heard students saying when it comes to the QA section in
I think
general?
the most common thing I get is that I'm unable to solve questions in the paper, but after the paper I'm able to solve it. That is one very common thing. And then it comes, I'm not able to complete the paper. Out of, if I say 22 questions now, I get stuck at question 15, 16, last 6 to 8 questions. I'm not even able to look at those two questions. Okay? And I think these are the kind of issues that we need to talk about. And while we'll talk about it a little later, the thing which effectively students are saying, I am getting a score which is much lower than my ACAT score. That is what I find many students saying in the paper, after the paper.
Correct. And I've also seen in many cases, especially when people take the mock test GP, once they had a bad DLR section, they kind of give up on the mock itself, saying that, and then when they move on to the QA section, they don't look at the QA section as fresh, sort of a new section, which is also a problem that I've seen in many cases.
Yeah.
Uh,
Actually, this happens a lot, and I've seen this multiple times. I am reminded of one of my students a couple of years ago. In fact, there is one another girl last year. She attempted exactly 4 questions in DILR, and she almost gave up on the QA section. That अब कुछ नहीं हो सकता मेरा, ठीक है? But ठीक है, she did something. She did not do as well in the QA as she would have done normally. Her QA score came down to what normally would have been a 99 plus, came down to 96 odd. DI, she cleared the sectional cutoff and she's right now in Indore. Had she given up on QA completely, she would not have got into Indore also. So she's right now in Indore. Yes, she cleared sectional cutoff with 4 questions of DI. This is still an acceptable situation. The worst situations are when people say, shit, DI mein barbaad ho gaya, kuch nahi hua, I've done so few questions, I've done 1, 6, 7, and they give up on quant. End of the day, find that DILR with those 7, 8 questions, they are ending up with 97, 98 percentile. And because they give up on quant, they have not done anything in quant, they've got some 78, 80 percentile, and hence no calls at all. So it is extremely important to remember these are 3 different papers. And if you carry the impact of one in the other, especially the negative impact of one in the subsequent section, whether it is English being carried to DILR and quant, or it is DILR carrying over to quant, then you are completely missing the point.
Correct. I think you should leave the analysis and the calculation of score and percentile to the IIMs post the test.
Yeah.
Don't do that work while you're taking the test. That is important. So
Yeah,
what we'll do
in
is we'll
fact,
do. Sorry, GP. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was just saying something similar. That end of the day, whatever analysis, etc., we do is post-mortem.
Correct.
It is not doing a paper when you're attempting the paper. You may get an idea it's a good paper, easy paper, difficult paper, but beyond that, nothing else. It's after the paper when we have discussion amongst ourselves, then we are able to give a much better idea. Okay, what is a good score? What the cutoff is likely to be. So attempting a paper, you have to just say my job is to attempt the paper, not to estimate what the sectional cutoff or what a good score is going to be.
True. So so what we'll do is sort of 3 things. The big picture. Big picture is something that we just want to recap what we discussed last time in terms of the basic about analysis, and we'll get into how to analyze a CAT mocks to boost score, especially with respect to QA section. Here we'll also take a sort of a case study, which is typically what we find. So we took a score of a particular student, and we are going to analyze that, and we're going to come up with certain key things that you have to remember when you look at how to analyze, and then we will create a 4 weeks action plan for you. To start with the big picture, this is the CAT 2021 scale score versus percentile rank. So if you're actually looking at something like a 95th percentile, at least going by the last year level of difficulty, you're looking at getting 8 questions net correct out of the total 22 questions.
Right.
And I believe that most of the IIMs will have a cutoff which will be around this range, right, GP? I
That's right.
think it would be 80, 85
Close,
percentile. So that is about
closer to 80 percentile. Closer to 80
closer,
percentile. Ahmedabad is at 70 percentile. It means it will be less than 3 marks. There are 3 questions.
less than 3 questions. So clearing the cutoff in the QA section is not much of an issue, but overall, if you want to hit the percentile, you want to look at least about 8, 9, 10 questions correct. So if you get about 50% percentage of the question net correct, then you are hitting the 99 percentile. Of course, this depends upon the level of difficulty of the questions. Now, when you
Yeah.
take the mock test, and this is something that I'm sure that you now understand. This chart that we have mentioned, we have used that in the previous two sessions as well. So this is your mock score. So assuming that you got 4 questions net correct and you got a score of 12 and you are at the 80th percentile in your mock test. So just putting that as an example. And let's assume that you had to put a target for yourself saying that I want to look at something like a 99 percentile, which means I have to get 11, 12. So this gap from here to here has to be broken down into two parts. So, like we said last time, it is absolutely important to understand what is known as your Aukat score, or which means simply a score that you could have got if you had behaved properly, if you had the time with you, if you are sensible. So, in the sense that what you have to do is that once the mock is done, don't just start checking the explanation, right? It is important that you redo all the questions once again, redo all questions. I also want you to redo the questions that you did get it right, because you want to look at, is there a better way to look at the question. But by and large, ensure that you redo all the questions that you got it wrong, redo the question that you did not attempt, and then you'll get what is known as Aukat score. Simply put, when you look at the test scenario, some questions are correct, some questions are wrong, some questions you did not solve. When you retake the test without any time limit, retake the test, maybe some of these questions that you got wrong became right. Some of the question is still wrong, which means that is kind of a bad decision that you made. Even now you can't get it right. So what were you doing? Some of the questions you now can do the ones that you did not attempt, which means those are the questions which are missed opportunities. And some of the questions you're still doubtful, which means that at least from a test scenario, that was a good decision that you made. And then these three things put together would actually be your Aukat score. So once you understand that, this gap between the mock score and that score would be what is execution gap, which means I could have got at least a score which is close to this one, and I would have got all these questions correct. Something in the test happened that created this gap. And from the Aukat score to the target score, which means I have to build in some more competence. I have to learn concepts. I have to learn certain things. There are certain type of question I'm not solving. So the remedy for each one is different. The remedy for obviously competence gap is to study more, but the remedy for execution gap is something else, GP. And I think that today people are sitting and just studying without actually realizing that can I just fill this gap first? I mean, I have studied so much. I have got this set of knowledge that I have. But if I can't implement that in the actual test paper, why am I studying more first? I think that the first thing that you have to figure out is your execution gap. GP,
Yes.
your take.
Yeah, just to add to what you have said, when I talk to students, one of the questions which I ask, okay, how many questions could you have solved without looking at the solution? And to me, that is what is your Aukat score. Okay, so you have sufficient knowledge to solve 8, 9, 10 questions. That is what your Aukat score is. The rest of the thing you don't have knowledge, so let's worry about that separately. And to me, the critical thing always is if your execution gap or you're missing out on questions despite having the knowledge to solve, then it is your behavior in the paper which has to be checked. What are you exactly doing in those 40 minutes of the section has to be again looked at critically, and maybe you need to make some changes in the way you take the paper, or in other words, to change your behavior while attempting the paper. So execution gap to me is the key to maximize your score based on the current level of knowledge, right? Similarly, competence gap, what it will do is it will increase your knowledge base. competence gap, if you work on this aspect, you will be able to improve your knowledge base, and because you have a greater knowledge base, you will be able to solve. So there are two parts. With my current level of knowledge, what score can I get? That's my awqat. Beyond my awqat, if I have to go, I have to increase my knowledge. For example, many students say, "Sir, I don't understand permutation combination. Hence, I did not get a good score." Why? How many questions of permutation combination were there? Out of the 22 odd questions, maybe one, maximum two. So that cannot be a reason for you getting only 4 or 5 questions right. So you first need to see what are the questions I could have solved. What you said, very, very important, solve the entire paper again. Identify which are the questions you could have solved yourself without looking at the solution, whether by jugaad, whether by knowledge or by any other method. That tells you your card score. Now say out of these 22 questions, another 10 questions I did not know how to solve. They belong to these topics, or they are these subtopics, and hence I need to improve. For example, I'm great in time, speed, distance, time and work, etc. But escalators, I get stuck. Escalator is my competence gap. If I'm not getting the question of percentages, ratio, proportion, which I'm very, very comfortable with, right, that is an execution gap.
I think to build this competent gap, it is also important to list down basically topic wise. Don't write broad areas, algebra, arithmetic, right? And you
Actually,
have
I will
to
say go subtopic wise or question type wise. For
question
example, I
type
just said
wise.
escalator will will typically get covered under time speed distance. So don't say time speed distance. To me, relative velocity is different. Relative velocity in boats and steam is different from relative velocity in escalators. Similarly, look at each of those question types and say, this is a question type I am comfortable with. This is a question type I don't know how to solve.
So, which then brings us to your key analysis when it comes to CAT mock. When it comes to QA specifically, this is not very different from VARC, because VARC is sort of difficult to understand what is the knowledge base that is required. But when it comes to
Yes.
QA, understanding this competence gap is easy to do. Like these are the topics that I don't know. It's easy. But I think the key would be to how do I analyze the execution gap? How do I analyze my behavior? Therefore, the analysis,
Right.
at least when you're doing the analysis, one of course, you're taking a list of all the topics that you don't know and you want to study and probably revise later. But I think the key, therefore, would be to look at the pure execution. And like GP said, it has to do with your behavior, how you behave in the paper. So let me take one case study here. This is a student attempt. This is a time analysis. I think this is one analysis that you should do. Now, this was taken from sort of a last year's data, which is still fine, though that's why you see 76 questions. But I think that for our general discussion, this is fine. Time analysis is something that you can actually see how much time that you spend with each question. You can actually copy that into an Excel sheet. And here, this student marked responses. 8 questions was a marked responses. The correct were 7. The incorrect were 1. The score is about 20 marks. So the 20 marks as a score, if I look at from here, this would be somewhere here. But obviously, also depend on level of difficulty of the paper. Okay.
By and large, 90 to 90 percentile plus would have been the case.
Also, if that's close to about 90th percentile, right? You can actually see a lot of zeros. You can see negative ones. You can see zeros. You can see 3, and there is just one negative one, and that's the case. So one thing that I would want to look at is, let's look at, for example, all the threes. So this student spent, out of the 40 minutes, 60 minutes was spent on getting those questions correct. So all the 3 marks were spent on 60, and then you can actually see 1 minute 50, 2 minute 57, 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute 44, 3 minutes 34, and 0.1. I think a vast majority of these questions that is spent apparently is on arithmetic.
Arithmetic.
Any any inference that you can draw, GP, here from
Yeah,
this?
first thing, this student is definitely reasonably okay with arithmetic by and large. Okay, but that's only half the story, because we have still not looked where he got it wrong. Second thing, I want to highlight something here. Many students want to do questions very fast. I want to do questions, but look at this. I don't have any problem with a person spending 3 minutes to get 3 marks. After all, in 40 minutes, if I want 40 marks, if you just go back, Gejo, 40 marks, if I remember correctly, would be somewhere around 99 percentile.
Yeah, 99.5 in
Yeah,
fact.
yeah. So if I'm looking at 1 minute per mark, then I can easily spend 3 minutes on a question if I'm 100% sure I know how to solve it. So many times what students do is they are not willing to spend 3 minutes on a question, even though they know that if they spend 3 minutes, you'll get it right, because they want to do the question in 1.5 minutes. And they then speed up. So the first thing is, yes, this person is reasonably good in arithmetic, it appears. One question of a quadratic equation, he or she has got it right. But to me, critical thing is 3 minutes 34 seconds, 3 minutes 2 seconds, etc. Look at the average time. It is 2.5 minutes approximately. 2 minutes 22 seconds exactly what is given, which is below my target. If this person has got 7 C's at 21 marks in 16.5 minutes. Now, had he utilized the balance 23.5 minutes correctly, this person would have been how many? 21 marks, would easily have been 40 plus.
I'll
So
just
the key issue to me is, what has the student done in the balance 24 minutes? The balance 24 minutes, has he or she messed up the paper? Did they wasted a lot of time? Why did he or she waste time? What mistakes or what was the behavior pattern in those 24 minutes? That has to be looked at. But I want all students to be comfortable with the fact 3 minutes per question is not an issue. Please be willing to spend 3 minutes if you know how to solve the question.
Right.
I will, in
So
fact, Gejo, go further and say, even if you spend 4 minutes to get the right answer, I'm okay with it. Because average time is what I'm looking at. If my average has to be 3, there'll be 2-minute questions also, there'll be 4-minute questions also. So up to 4 minutes you're spending, no issue at all, continue. Provided there are questions which you'll spend in solve in 1.5, 2 minutes also.
So now what is important to look at is, let's look at all the zeros.
Yeah.
All the zeros is 21 minutes. So it is like looking at the 21 minutes to get 0 marks. And so there are, let me put in the order. Let me put this in ascending order in terms of the time spent. And this is something that you really have to look at. Now there is time, speed, distance, time and work, time, profit and loss, business allocation, logarithm. Clearly, you look at this, all the arithmetic questions are here.
Gejo, this is an ego issue. I am
This
good at
is
arithmetic. I have to solve every question of arithmetic. Hence, I spend 5 minutes in a question which I don't have a hope of solving. Same thing with time and work, 3 minutes 43 seconds, 2.5 minutes. Each of these questions appears to be, especially the top 4. Maybe not so much 1 minute 43 seconds or 1 minute 25 seconds, but definitely the top 4 are an ego issue. I have studied arithmetic. I am good at arithmetic. I have to solve them. It is the person's ego which has killed him or her.
it may not also be ego. For example, if I look at all the geometries, right, you have got circles and mensuration and quadrilaterals, and these are questions I have 10
Because we
it's like,
cannot evaluate the question in 5 seconds, 10 seconds at all. So question 62 onwards, which is 19 seconds and below, the person has just looked at the question and said, I won't do it.
I think the
For
only thing that has
example, I
happened
don't know
here.
what the question might be. Inequality question 69. Now, most of the inequality questions you can always solve by substitution. Okay. Set theory and set theory or Venn diagram question and quant are reasonably easy usually. Okay. Similarly, if you look at these geometry question or binomial expansion geometry question, you can draw the figure. Okay. Now my basic point is, the person has not given sufficient time from these yellow colored questions. These yellow colored questions have not been given sufficient time to decide whether he or she should be attempting or not. Is it well left or is it not? I don't know. Okay.
I think this is a good well left space. I think that you spend about let's say about 40 seconds, 35
Yeah,
seconds, and you
absolutely.
decided you want to solve it. You spend about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll put it in a slightly different manner. To read
Hmm.
any question on an average, I'll take 25 to 30 seconds. Okay, read and another 15, 20 seconds to evaluate whether I'll be able to attempt it or not. So to evaluate whether to attempt the question or not, it will take me anything from 40 seconds to 60 seconds. To me, 60, 61, and 63, the 3 questions in the middle, the person has taken a conscious call of not attempting it. Very good call. The question below that, 62 onward, the yellow colored calls, the person has not been able to give time. He's just gone on some, let's say, some whims and fancies, or I don't know what to call it. That some preconceived notions that I will not do this kind of a question. Similarly, the top ones, the ones which are red, the person has either allowed ego to come into play, okay, or been over optimistic about his or her abilities in this topic.
Or
In
fear,
these
GP.
topics. No, I was just adding to the fear part. I also said
Yeah.
that the ego is one critical thing. Fear is the second part. I have some idea as to how to do it, so let me try doing it. As if all the other questions are going to be difficult. Questions are not given in increasing order of difficulty. Questions are given in a random manner. 22 questions, 22 factorial combinations. You will get one of those 22 factorial, which might be which is going to be a random sequence. So don't assume questions will become more and more difficult as they go. And some people say exactly the opposite. That the last few questions are always easy. No, I don't say that. I have seen papers in the last few questions are very difficult also.
So the idea is this. So first of all, please understand. I put this in order of the time that is spent. When you look at the decision, this is 3 minutes 43 seconds. That's another 5 minutes has come here, and then suddenly started looking at the question and ditched these two questions just by looking at the question. They just ditched it and came here and tried a few things here, and you kind of actually can see this behavior. The behavior, like what is saying, that either it will be an issue with respect to ego.
If you just go to the previous slide,
Yeah.
in which all the questions are given 51 to 76 in the order.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. No, this is the previous one, the one before this.
All the questions you want, everything.
Yes, this one. Now look at it. You can just discern the behavior. Look at question 56. 5 minutes 12 seconds. Wasted so much time that the student was under time pressure. Next two questions did not give them sufficient time to evaluate also. What is going in the mind of the student is possibly that I wasted so much time. Let me do it very fast. When you try doing it very fast, you have possibly missed an easy question. Did not give 7 seconds. How did you decide that in 7 seconds you can't do the question? It will take 30 seconds to read a question. Worst case, 25 seconds. How can you decide in such a short span of time? A question in the initial part. Okay. So all I'm saying is the way you do a paper is you keep on doing the easy question which take less time or more time is the second. And the normal behavior is if I wasted time, the next couple of questions will typically be wrong, or I will end up not evaluating them and leaving them completely. Okay? And you'll see this happens later also. Look at DJ, if
I
you
think
can just
let
go
me.
back to the previous
Okay.
slide.
Yeah. So there is this 2 minute. Okay, at least that person marked the answer. But then we have got a couple of. I think this was purely because of the question. देख के छोड़ दिया. Okay.
Okay, Gejo, now look at this. Wherever you see, whenever the person has wasted time and not marked an answer, question 68 again. The next question, question 68, 2 minutes. Next question, 6 seconds, decided not to do it. Okay. So my essentially point is that when you spend more time, the subsequent question either you'll get them wrong because you'll be in a rush, or you will not evaluate them correctly and leave a easy question. I don't know whether they were easy or not, but there's a very, very typical pattern that I find in students.
What you can also find out, there is an average time spent by the top set of students to also get a sense in terms of what others are behaving, at least the toppers are behaving. So here, so this analysis that you do with respect to this time, and especially the time that you spend for getting 0 marks, we only look at the incorrect ones and the correct ones, which brings us to this simple question: how do we define attempt GP? I think this is an important
That's my
question to
favorite
answer.
topic, Joe. This is my
Hmm.
favorite topic.
Hmm.
Any question on which you have spent more than 45 seconds is an attempt. That 45 seconds you could shift it to 1 minute also, but broadly I'm saying if you have spent a minute and a half, couple of minutes on a question, it does not matter whether you have marked an answer or not, because you have already invested time. If you have marked an answer, got it right, great. If you have marked an answer, got it wrong, it is a double negative because you have not only spent time, but you have got a negative also. If you have spent time but left the question, there's a small redeeming factor is you at least you are not getting a -1. But that was a wrong choice of question. Okay? So to me, I tend this questions marked correctly plus question marked incorrectly, but the question and also the question where you got 0 marks but ended up spending, let's say, a minute or more, that is also an attempt for me. Now, if we go back to this particular individual, Gejo, if you go back to the previous slide, yeah, yeah, this slide should do. This one should do.
This one, no?
In fact, that will be no next one.
Okay.
The next one. Go further. These 8 he has attempted. Okay.
Yeah, okay. This
Go
one.
to the yeah. Let's just go to the next one, Gejo. Yeah. Now these 8 is fine. To me, 56, 51, 68, 54, 75, logs 1 at 25 seconds, all these are attempts. I can excuse question 60 and below. That 59, 57, 41 seconds and below, I can excuse. But these are attempts to me. That you did not mark an answer, the only redeeming feature is not getting a -1, assuming it's an MCQ. But these are attempts. So as far as I am concerned, this student has done not 8 questions. He or she has done how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He or she has attempted 14 questions, out of which 7 right, 1 wrong, 6 time wasted.
But actually, if you look at GP, sorry, you have got here which is 16 minutes, 16 and a half minutes for the correct response. So this is 16 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
Let's say 16 and a half minutes. If I look at the one that was wrong here, that was actually good in 1 minute. The person spent that's about a minute time, and this 6 question actually took
Yeah.
17 and a half minutes. And this is,
5,
I think,
3,
Bacha Puja,
8,
there is
2,
just
10, 12. And these are incidental. These have not been evaluated. Okay.
these
So
are
those yellow
these
questions are something which the student will come back and say, how could I miss out on such easy question? I'm sure out of these questions which are marked yellow, that the student will find 4, 5 simple questions which he or she would have solved correctly had they given sufficient time to the question. And
there'll
you
be
know what you
some
have
miss.
written is extremely important. 16 and a half minutes for correct answers, 17 and a half minutes wasted in the paper. You have wasted 40 plus percentage or almost 45% of your time in the paper. In 55% of the time, you got 20 marks. Had you used the full 40 minutes correctly, you would have been about 40 marks. So there's no surprise at all. To me, this is an analysis which students don't do. Most of the time, what happens, they do the paper, check your answers, either cry or become happy that I've got this score and throw away the paper. Okay, it's online, so they can't throw away now. But the issue is they have to first solve the question paper all over again and do this time analysis. And in their mocks, they have this question-wise time given to them. Do this time analysis. This will tell you what are the mistakes you have committed. And I hope you can now understand. I would start by saying these red questions are the ones which should not have been attempted at all, because these are the questions which the student does not have competence to solve. The remaining ones, the green and the yellow, the student might find that there were few questions, let's say 4, 5 questions, which he or she had competence or the knowledge to solve, and they were missed opportunities. Okay. Not all of them, the ones which could have been solved by the student. And just one last thing, there's one question which the student has got wrong. In less than a minute, 55 seconds, if I remember correctly, was the time spent on this question.
Correct.
Yeah. So my point is, why 50, is it wrong because you rushed through it and tried to do it in 55 seconds? Had you given a minute and 20 seconds or a minute and 30 seconds, had you given it half a minute more, would you have got it right? Then that is a crime which has been committed by the student. If it is 55 seconds, getting -1 mark means you should not have either attempted the question or given it a little more time to get it right. It is neither here nor there right now.
So key thing is, while you are doing that Awkaat score analysis, you are redoing all the questions together.
Yes.
You break it down in this, saying that, okay, what is that I need to figure out from these set of questions? These set of questions, is there a sort of a better way to solve it? Is there anything
A
that I
faster
could
method.
do? Maybe a faster method. That is what you learn from here. What you learn from of course, there is one question here, and in some cases, students may have lot many things. Is it because of any silly mistake that you made? Usually, or had you spent a little more time, would you have got this question correct? That's a question. That is a question that you have to ask. But our key thing is about you making sense of this one. So out of these questions, why did you attempt this question, or what kind of mistake did you make? You spent actually 5 minutes on a question, still got it wrong. What was the issue? And then here, the rest of them. Okay, was it a good decision eventually? Could you have solved it? But doing all these questions once again before even look at the solution, is there anything that I could sort of had solved? Do I already have the capability of solving at least some of these questions? Now, if it turns out the most of these questions you did not know, then you gets into the competence gap. But my experience says, GP, is that I'm sure that from this set of 9 questions, there might be at least 3 of them the students could have got. And
Easily, easily.
and if somebody would have ditched, let's say, at least 3 to 4 questions from here because it is difficult, got, let's say, another 3 4 questions more from the rest of the gang thing, I'm looking at 8 plus 4, which is about 12 questions net correct. 12 questions net correct will give where you're already there in the target, you will reach the target score.
These are the interesting bit is most of the time I find that students Awqat score is higher than the target score. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time that is what I find about students. Okay? And one last thing regarding these red mark questions, these are 5 minutes, 12 seconds. It will be very
Sure.
important to understand why did I spend so much time. Because what also happened in trying to speed up, I read the question fast, I miss out on a word or a line, and hence I get it wrong, and I'm not able to solve it correctly. And hence it has taken me 5 minutes. I don't know what the case is, but it is either a wrong choice or a silly mistake because I tried to move very fast. Okay? Silly mistake with 0 marks. So
So
this is the analysis which I would want every student to do after they have solved the complete paper, some complete section again. Go compare your time analysis and then say, okay, what is it that I need to do with respect to each of these?
So when you do this initial period of time, this is your analysis is going to take a lot of time because you are
Yes.
still trying to figure out. But over time, what happens that you will conquer some of these behaviors. You naturally this analysis time gets down. You are then largely figuring out how to build your competence, right? So your stages of analysis will also change over a period of time. So never think that analysis is a waste of time. I think that's something that I hear students saying that I'm spending close to four hours on this particular section, sir. Is it a waste of time? It is not, because understanding your behavior. If you understand your behavior, and if you just make simple minor adjustments to it, and you can actually see, let's say, simply getting, let's say, 15 more marks, maybe 12 more marks, maybe,
And
which
you know the rule of thumb for me is if it's a 40-minute section, you'll spend 80 to 100 minutes analyzing the section, which is what this QA is. 40-minute section, be willing to spend 80 to 100 minutes to begin with. This will happen in 4-5 papers where you spend 80 to 100 minutes. After that, the subsequent papers, the time will come down to 40 to 60 minutes. Because now you'll have complete clarity as to what you are doing right, what you are not doing right, okay? And so on and so forth. So just make sure that the initial 5-6 papers you do a very, very thorough analysis. It's like sharpening your saw. If you don't sharpen your saw, you'll take a lot of time to accomplish the task. This is sharpening the saw. Please do it.
so GP, actionables in terms of understanding level of comfort and how to move forward. Let's say looking at the trying to fill the competence issue of
Mhm,
students looking at the competence gap.
mhm.
What should they do?
Yeah, Gejo, so now that you have done all those 22 odd questions again, okay, and you know which are the questions which you are able to solve, those are the ones you are comfortable with, okay. Without looking at the solution, you know how to solve them. Whether they take less time or more time is the second part of the story. Similarly, there will be some questions you say, boss, I don't know how to solve this. I'm still not clear about inequalities, for example, or this kind of inequality question. I don't know what to do with escalators. I don't know how to solve a permutation combination question. This is uncomfortable area for me. This is my competence gap. So uncomfortable can also be replaced with this is my lack of knowledge or competence gap. To cover up for them, you'll have to pick up your books, you'll have to go through the topic, you'll have to understand the concept, or maybe you need to sit with the faculty, go through the classes again, do something, but get the knowledge base correct or knowledge base filled up. Because this is a place where you are missing out on knowledge, you don't have sufficient knowledge, hence you can't solve. The second and the third column, you have sufficient knowledge to solve these questions. When you say not really sure, these are questions which you are able to do, but you get confused. You are not 100% sure of those areas. By and large, the concept is clear. Okay, so this is where you need to say, is it this is where you'll probably say, is it competence gap or is it the execution gap? Okay, if it's you say I'm still not very comfortable with the concept, then it should go to the left, which means go towards uncomfortable. If you say no, I'm okay with it, but I still make these mistakes, then it is a question of revision which is missing. So question that where you take a little time, where you think you can do where you understand the concept, but you take time, those are the questions where you need to revise, because these are the questions where you end up making some mistake. There's some concept which is clear but not fully clear. There's something, some trick or some technique you miss out. So those are the questions. If you start revising them regularly once a week, you will become comfortable. So my idea is a question should either be doable or not doable. Not
It
really
should not
sure.
be
No,
there.
या हाँ है या ना है, कुछ कुछ होता है का कोई फायदा नहीं होता, या होता है या नहीं होता है, ठीक है. If I put it very simply, it's a question either I can solve it with confidence or I can't solve it. End of the story. Unfortunately, for most of the students, you'll find the second column out of 22 questions, there'll be 13 questions. That is the issue, which means they have not revised sufficiently. Because they have not revised sufficiently, the question has not moved to comfortable area, or they have not discovered this is not something I should be doing, and hence not shifted to the uncomfortable area. But ये काम करना जरूरी है.
When you look at comfortable, it's not like a perfect 100% every single question. I think that I can reasonably handle it. If there's a tough question comes, okay, I'm comfortable leaving it. I know these questions. I know which kind of question I can solve, which I cannot solve. So even if not really sure, you should put some of these questions into the comfortable zone, knowing that I can handle it. But I know why I'm not solving such a question, because I know that it's going to take time. The ones that you're confused,
Yeah,
and like GP was
and
saying that
yeah, Gejo, in my language, that would be a round two question. I will
round
do it
two.
if I have time. Yes. So comfortable area, I have round one and round two questions. Round one questions are which I will do very fast. I am very comfortable, no issues at all. Round two questions are ones which I can solve, but they take me time. So I'm comfortable with the topic, with the area, with the question type. But inherently, that's a question that will take me 5 minutes to solve. It's a round two question to be done if I have time.
So, and these are the ones that you are uncomfortable with. You have a lack of knowledge, and I'm sure that math is not such a very difficult subject that knowledge cannot be bridged. I think when you keep telling yourself math is tough,
There
math
might
is
be a
tough, math.
couple of subtopics or question types which you may not be able to do.
But by and large, I think that you at least create a comfort level at least on level one type of questions across topic area. But all these will actually depend upon how, what is your major issue. Is execution is issue, is your behavior issue, or a competition is issue. But do understand that put in only two categories. Try and put stuff in two categories: comfortable, uncomfortable one. You would figure out where you want to put the not really sure question into these categories, so that you can build on the competence later on. Which brings us, GP, quick action plan for the next 4 weeks for the students.
Yeah. So Gejo, before you go to the action plan on this slide itself, I want to just highlight one small thing. I have started getting messages from students. Can I afford to leave this topic? Should I do this topic or not? At this point of time, with CAT almost 6 months away, no, it's too early to decide which topics to attempt, which one not to attempt. That decision you take in October. Right now, you have to say, I have to fill my knowledge gap. There's an area, there's a topic, there's a subtopic or a question type that I'm uncomfortable with. I have to right now work towards improving my knowledge base. If your knowledge base is of 7 questions, you cannot get more than 7 right answers. Let's be clear about that. At this point of time, if your knowledge base is 7, you need to increase it to 10. If it is 10, it needs to be taken to 12. If it is 12, it needs to be taken to 15, and so on and so forth. Ideally speaking, at the time of CAT, you should have a knowledge base of at least 16 out of 22 or 17 out of 22 at least. I'm not saying you should know all 22 to be solved. Okay, so please, at this point of time, don't look at this thing, I will leave this in CAT. No, too early to decide. Work towards improving your knowledge base. If you're still not able to do it, in October, you can always decide what to attempt and what not to attempt. At this point of time, that cannot be the starting point for you.
Yeah. So for example, it's like during a test scenario and a post-test scenario. So can I afford to leave question in test scenario? Yes, of course. Right. But can I afford to leave questions, leave topic in your preparation scenario? What GP is saying, don't do that at this point in time. Continue your preparation. Keep bridging as much of competence gap as you can. Bridge your execution gap as you can. Both are your bridging. Both of them in some way is going to help you build your score eventually. So that's what you should do. Yeah, GP, an action plan.
Yeah, the first thing would be to look at the both. Okay, let me not say first thing. I think both have to be done parallelly. Execution gap as well as competence gap both have to be filled up. Okay, so I would not say, as I said at this point of time, that you look at only the execution gap. Look at the knowledge gap also, because you have almost 6 months with you to cover up for all these issues. Okay? And starting point would be based on the mocks that you have taken so far. Okay? Try to identify where is the knowledge gap, where is the execution gap. Okay? And I would say on an average, out of the 6 mocks, you would have taken 2 to 3, if not more. Let those 2-3 mocks and plus your classes. In addition to your classes, you would have also done some section tests, etc. Based on all of them, at least take a call as to what is it that you are missing out in knowledge, and start filling up those gaps. Okay? It is okay to say in the class geometry has not been covered. I'll cover geometry when class happens. I'm okay with that. Okay? But if you have already covered till algebra in your classes, and there's a knowledge gap, then you need to hit the road now and cover up for that knowledge gap. Okay? So at no stage I want you to ignore the knowledge gap. Don't think execution will cover everything. Okay? That's the first thing. Secondly, execution gap, what we said, take the 3 papers which you have taken, take the section test which you have attempted so far. If you have not done a thorough analysis, do it now. Each paper, solve it completely, make those tables comfortable, not so comfortable, and uncomfortable. That table has to be made, and then identify where did you waste time in the paper. The critical thing always will be, where did I waste time? Which are the questions I should have attempted or I should not have attempted? Those Z questions were the ones which should not have been attempted in the paper. What is common to those questions? Almost all of them were arithmetic, which means the person probably is reasonably okay with, but still does not understand the higher levels of difficulty questions. Or was it because in trying to attempt larger number of questions, the student ended up reading very fast, missed out on data, and hence wasted 5 minutes and still could not get the right answer. Okay, so try to identify the key issue for you. Is the key issue speed, which means trying to move fast? Is the key issue with you, let's say, inability to identify or wanting to do everything? So please identify the key issue and address that one first.
So essentially, for you to do execution gap, one of the tasks that you have to do is to take mocks. This is why whether you have completed syllabus, not completed syllabus, syllabus exists, does not exist, my behavior or execution gap, simply by doing analysis, automatically I'm also looking at my execution gap. I take the mock test, and then to build the competence gap, I'm sure that there have to be some new topics that I have to study. Then you create a plan of action for that, especially for the topic that you already covered. If you ended
you're taking a mock tells you you're not only about the execution gap but also the knowledge gap. It tells you very clearly which are the topics you thought you know but you still don't know. So that knowledge gap definitely gets covered there. Yeah.
So
but
here
as
is
I said,
that
starting point for me is in the first 1 week, 3 papers you have taken on an average. If you have taken 5-6 papers, take 2 weeks. But if you have taken only 3 mocks so far, 3 sections or QA, please solve them completely. So then the first 1 week you should have clarity as to what is the incorrect behavior you are having in the paper. Okay. So get rid of that part. Okay. So that in the subsequent mocks, at least you can start addressing those issues. And let me also tell you, it will not happen overnight. Now you have discovered, oh, I'm wasting question and time in these kind of questions. It does not mean next paper will not do it. You will still do it, but at least you'll be conscious and it will get reduced. Okay? The key thing to understand would be to identify the pattern. Which are the question types I'm wasting time in? What is common to those questions? Okay? For example, if you look at my attempt in most of the papers, you will find me not attempting questions which would say how many solutions are there. And especially, I will not attempt those questions if it's a theta or if it has got very close choices. Choices are 4, 5, 6, 7. I typically leave those questions. Why? Because I know I take time and I have a tendency of getting them wrong. So why should I do those questions? Now you need to draw such inferences for yourself based on your pattern. So when you look at your answers which you're getting right, wrong, or whatever, you'll be able to decipher the pattern within that, and that pattern is what you need to adhere to going forward.
So the one thing therefore on what is happening is that probably this week you have not done analysis. Your first week is spent on thorough analysis of whatever paper that you have. understand the execution gap, understand the knowledge gap. Subsequently, when you look at one activity, has to be the mock test, and there has to be two activities that you have to decide for yourself. I'm not saying that this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Two tasks that you should look at. One is a task. Obviously, you're building new knowledge based on doing more and more chapters. I'm sure that whatever happening in your classroom, you're doing
Right.
those things. Other thing that you have to do is that one of the things that is absolutely important is to revise those things that are already done. That is those not so sure areas that the mock is telling you. I think GP, I've seen students not revising the stuff too many questions. How important is revision according to you?
Yeah, because to me, revision is the key. Revision ensures two things: speed as well as accuracy. And this paper is only about speed and accuracy. So if I revise, so which are the questions I need to revise? This not so comfortable question, which I can solve, but I'm not able to solve them very fast or correctly, or I end up making mistakes. Those are the questions I have to revise regularly, at least once a week. And when I say revise, revise means solve it again. Okay. Now, again, when you look at the revising, it does not mean only mock questions, section test, topic test, class exercises. Wherever you have a question of that type, please bookmark it, highlight it, and start revising those questions. Over a period of time, you'll find that some of the questions you have revised so many times, you almost remember, forget about them now. No need to revise them further. But no new question will keep getting added. So in your process, what will happen? A few questions will get added, a few questions will get removed. So net, the number of questions which you have to revise will be almost the same after about 3 to 4 weeks. Initially, it will keep on increasing, then it will get added and subtracted, so it will stabilize at a particular number.
So essentially, when you look at your preparation currently, the mock analysis which take a little more time. Your revision may be less because you have not done too many stuff. But your new topic, you might have to spend a lot of time. But as you move along, your mock analysis will take lesser amount of time. Your revision will take a substantial chunk of time, and sort of your new topic to be added will be lesser because so this
Yeah.
transition you'll face at different point in time. But unless and until I don't keep a day in a week that I'm saying that I'm going to revise things, it is not going to happen. A day you have decided for mocks, a certain days you've decided for analysis, and you have to decide a day on revision. And as you go along, this transition will happen. From mock analysis getting a little reduced because you are building more gap, the amount of revision that you're doing will likely increase. The amount of new topic, new things that you're going to learn will likely going to reduce. And towards then, like GP said, that you'll probably eventually figure out, okay, I know that based on whatever I know so far, this is good enough for me to crack the paper. And I'll eventually make it into a game wherein I'm going to do just two things, which is my mock and analysis of all the tests that I've taken and revision of the topic. And that transition will happen eventually. This is probably the transition that you will see in your preparation stage. But I'm sure that currently some of you may be here and some of you may be here. Wherever you are, ensure that you have these three the specific task of activity: building up competence gap in two ways. One is learning something new. Other is that revising those things that you're not comfortable. Building up execution gap on knowing what to do with respect to the knowledge gap by doing the mock analysis. If these three tasks can happen every sort of week, uh, your preparation would be just good enough. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So anything else, GP?
No, I guess that's it. And if students can just implement this, it'll be great. And I want them to just remember, number of attempts is equal to number of questions for which you have marked the answer plus the other question for which you have not marked the answer but spent more than a minute. That is the number of attempts you have to look at.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Okay.